Flowing all the way from Waukesha, Wisconsin, until it joins the Illinois River in Ottawa, Illinois, the Fox River and its tributaries drain an area known for its rich natural resources. From Carpentersville to the southern borders of East and West Dundee, Illinois, over 2 miles of river and stream bank were found to be eroding and negatively impacting water quality.
This project was begun by a lot of local governmental officials to address water quality issues in the Fox River watershed. Because of erosion over many, many years, the water has carried away sediment, deposited sediment in locations where we really don't want it, and caused unstable banks throughout the watershed.
The watershed for this river covers some 2,600 square miles across 10 counties in Wisconsin and Illinois, of which 1,700 miles are located in Illinois. But what is a watershed? It's the land from which surface water drains into a receiving body of water, in this case, the Fox River. All of the things that we do in the watershed area has an effect on water resources, from the quality to the quantity of our water. This presentation will demonstrate the steps being taken to control human impact on the watershed area. The project is in its early stages, and the results shown to you today will only improve over time as vegetation continues to grow and flourish.
One of the main goals of this project was to deal with non-point source pollution. Point source pollution can be defined as where it has a specific outlet, such as it comes from a factory or a sewage treatment plant, those kind of uses where you've treated the water and it's discharging at a specific point. Non-point source pollution would be something like here in the park, where we've got runoff coming from the parking area, as well as we have from the lawn that has fertilizer, herbicide, those kind of land uses on it.
Within the Fox River watershed are 3 of the most populated counties in the state of Illinois: Kane, Lake, and McHenry. It's here that 11% of the people in Illinois share only 3% of the land in the entire state. This puts a lot of stress on the river, and keeping it healthy becomes a full-time job.
I'm pretty excited about this project that the state and the county and townships are working on here in the river. I've lived here, this will be my 70th year living right in this home, and I've seen the riverbank change so much in those 70 years, and we've lost a lot of the bank to erosion, and so I'm hoping that the project of planting native plants and grasses that are supposed to be waterproof, I guess you'd say, and I'm really hoping that we can save the bank and the shores along here.
Contributing into this project has been the IEPA, Kane County Forest Preserve, the villages of Carpentersville, East Dundee, West Dundee. These agencies have all come together financially as well as time and effort to make this project work.
Before we started this project was a lot of locations that were very, very severely eroded. Some of them had 5-foot drop-offs down to the water's edge, a safety concern. Some areas had so much debris you couldn't even really tell where the channel was. It was all very overgrown and used as a dumping ground. Some of the smaller tributaries had areas where totally overtaken by aggressive species. So there are a lot of different challenges in different locations, but overall the erosion concerns were driving the project. Removing the aggressive non-native vegetation and providing sunlight so we could get something more native established was a concern.
There are several causes of water quality problems along the streams, rivers, and lakes in the watershed. The main causes of the pollution are siltation, nutrients, suspended solids, organic enrichment, and low dissolved oxygen. Sedimentation of lakes and streams reduces their ability to store and transport water, increasing the potential for flooding and water quality problems. Sediment clouds the water, inhibits photosynthesis, impairs the ability of fish to locate prey, clogs fish gills, smothers fish larvae and eggs, destroys animal nesting and spawning areas, and increases water treatment costs. Plus, it reduces the safe use of the water for recreational activities as well. Next, Nutrients and organic enrichment also hurt water quality by feeding plants like algae, which causes them to grow out of control. When the algae dies off and decomposition occurs, the oxygen is used up, causing fish to die and problems for other organisms that live in the water. But how does this pollution happen? Remember, everything we do in the watershed affects our streams, rivers, and lakes. That means that all the fertilizers we put on the ground, whether you're a farmer with hundreds of acres of corn or just trying to grow a green lawn, will wash into our water.
The stabilization practices we used on this project were selected specifically for the location and the problem at that location. Most of the solutions incorporated plantings as a vital part of the installation. For example, Ajax, which are 2-foot high jacks like the jacks you play with, are trenched in at the toe of the slope. Those are used in locations where the velocities are relatively high and we need to protect that toe of the slope to prevent the rest of the slope from sloughing in. So those were used primarily on the tributaries of the Fox River where the velocities are higher and it's a little more intense in terms of erosion. Along the Fox River, we focused mainly on regrading the slope and using emergent plants and stabilization seed mixes to stabilize the slope. The water level along the Fox is such that it goes up and down very frequently, stays up for a while, goes down, and we selected the plantings to survive that kind of inundation periods. Core fiber rolls were used in some locations. Fiber rolls are about a foot across, made of coconut fiber, and they're laid right where the water meets the bank and trenched in and seeded. They provide protection for that toe of slope. The seeds grow as sediments deposited in this matrix. It provides even more growth medium, and the roots become entrenched and becomes one solid piece of toe protection. And those were used in some locations where the velocities weren't quite as high as required for the Ajax.
Previous conditions that we found here varied. For Sleepy Creek, which was one of the tributaries to the Fox River, we found the site to be totally overgrown by non-native trees and shrubs. So the sunlight was not able to get to the bottom of and near the ground to help hold the soil in place. The other situation that we experienced was areas that were totally void of vegetation. So in this case, we basically came in, installed the Ajax and other structures to help hold the slope and then to reshape that slope so we'd minimize the amount of erosion that would occur on them.
In some locations along the Fox, we used in-place materials, boulders, old monuments, and riprap that had been previously placed to trench in at the toe of the slope. That saved us some money because we were using on-site materials, but provides the same benefit as protecting that toe from the erosion of the water that flows by it, and therefore protecting the slope above that. In some locations on the Fox, there were some buildings that were very close to the top of slope, and we used these intensive methods to ensure that the erosion would not, future erosion would not occur that would affect those buildings.
Other things also affect water quality, like construction and changes made to the landscape. As we build more homes and roads, these impervious surfaces do not allow rainwater to infiltrate into the ground. This increases the volume and speed of the water running off the surface. Besides increasing the possibility of flood damage to property, this rapid runoff will erode previously stable stream banks and channels. As the movement of the water across the watershed is altered, problems like erosion occur. Changes to the way water flows and affects its environment are called hydrologic changes. Normally, the banks of the streams, rivers, and lakes are home to plants with strong root networks that hold the bank's soil in place. This prevents dirt slopes from collapsing and falling into the water. Unfortunately, due to the hydrologic changes, stream banks become unstable and erode. The result? Without the strong roots to hold everything in place, the banks collapse into the streams and rivers, thereby damaging water quality throughout the whole area.
Another advantage of this project is that we are planting the native vegetation and providing a buffer zone from the top of the slope back that will remain unmown and it's those deep-rooted native vegetative plants. And the buffer zone will filter the runoff that's coming off these parks, streets, and urban areas and minimize the pollutant load that's delivered to the river. Every linear foot we planted will be a buffer zone between that urbanized area and the water's edge.
I'm really excited that we'll be able to get some natural native grasses, the bulrushes and things growing that'll hold the shoreline without having to resort to cement walls and things like that.
Some of the challenges of a project of this scale were, number one, coordination issues with local government officials, property owners, making sure that everybody was on board before we got moving too far along. And that was handled very well because everybody, I think, was enthusiastic about the problem and solving the problem. Some other issues that affected the project as it moved along was damage by wildlife. Geese damage was anticipated and gooseberries were provided, but muskrat, beaver have made it more difficult to establish some of the vegetation than we had hoped.
The geese are like mini lawnmowers, and they would basically eat the vegetation that we would plant. So we've, in many areas, put fencing around the areas that we've planted to help minimize the predation or the eating of these plants.
On the design side, there were a couple of challenges, including the fluctuating water levels of the Fox and resultant water levels in the tributaries. The Fox down here is controlled by dams upstream, and even though it might not be raining, it hadn't rained here, the water level comes up because of discharges upstream. But the plants were selected specifically for that kind of inundation, and although the establishment period might be a little longer, I'm confident that in several years we'll look back and say, boy, it sure looks great and it was worth the effort.
I'm hoping after a while this all works out the way it's planned and that we can save the riverbank.
There's recreational benefits. Obviously, we're allowing access down to the river, and more stable slopes make it safer and more appealing for people to come down and fish or enjoy the river's edge. Obviously, the water quality benefit, which is the prime reason, by reducing the erosion, getting the vegetation well established, that sediment is not being carried down into the Fox and further downstream, affecting all the kinds of critters that live in the water that get buried by the sediment. There's lots of benefits of these kinds of installations.
Ways we can help this process of improving water quality is by supporting local ordinances for stormwater management and restricting destruction of wetlands and natural areas along streams, which act like buffers to these areas. Also, supporting local programs for the restoration of stream banks as shown in this presentation. There are many small things we can do to help prevent this erosion of the watershed area. These changes, which only continue to improve over time, will hopefully serve as an inspiration for other communities to stabilize and protect their own riverbanks. Planting native vegetation, adding koi or fiber rolls, Ajax, and vegetated geogrids can be very cost-effective when applied to the right areas. There are many small things we can do to help prevent this erosion of the watershed area. For example, by participating in stream cleanups or other conservation efforts, by directing roof downspouts away from driveways and foundations and onto lawns or planting beds, by landscaping with native vegetation which promotes infiltration, by eliminating any illegal connections of household wastewater to storm sewers, and by not burning or dumping yard waste along a stream because it kills bank-stabilizing vegetation and contributes to pollutants to the stream. Using these methods has improved water quality, protected property from erosion damage, and cut down on maintenance costs. And they've done something else in the Fox Valley. Truly beautified our community.